everyone, welcome back. Just a quick note, I am placing a timestamp in the description below, so you can always jump ahead to the direct reading of the book and miss my preamble here. That's okay. You can also click the 3 dots down below and get a written transcript to appear on your screen. And it is also enabled for closed captioning. So click the gear icon, hit CC, and you can read along with me. Right now, we are simply beginning with the beginning. I look forward to becoming more interactive with you as we move forward together. And right now, the book is available as a hardback 4-volume set. The links are below to purchase, and also in the video, you'll see them pop up here. We are working on audio versions, ebooks, and abridged as well. So your comments and questions are encouraged. We would love to hear from you, and a special hello to the lovely Amber. It is wonderful to be back here with you. I love you, sweetheart. This channel has undergone so many changes over the years, different evolutions. It's just crazy. We were on hiatus last year, but right now I'm grateful to have you because we're doing the most important thing we've ever done: unfolding consciousness, exploring the living universe, and intelligent powers in nature and humans. Before we get started, I thought I would share a bit of a review from a broadcast journalist and esoteric author, Tim Wyatt. Tim writes, Dr. Edi Bilimoria has produced this full-blooded manifesto to help kickstart that long-awaited convergence of hard science with its occult cousin. It is both a history book and a blueprint for a new era. Embedded throughout the entire 1,300-page narrative runs an urgent mantric rhythm, constantly stressing the vital importance of free, unrestricted thinking and highlighting the need for new paradigms of thought. So without further ado, let's begin. Now, when I'm reading Edi's work, you'll see this thing pop up here. It's like an on-air light. When this is on, this is the book. We're continuing now through Edi's personal note to readers. We are on page X, little baby Roman X, 10, in book 1. In the wake of over half a century of intense involvement and participation in spiritual societies and musical circles, contemporaneous with a working life and diverse roles across numerous industries, I ask the reader's indulgence in permitting me to pass on 4 observations, hard-won through experience. First, the need to transcend, never jettison, intellect in order to arrive at even an approximate semblance of truth. We live in a world where reality is ascribed to the surface appearance and thingness of objects. However, the nominal, thing in itself, essences have more reality than their phenomenal, objective counterparts. We cannot approach truth merely through science and the intellect. Great music and art, the eloquence of Mozart, the timelessness of Schubert, the majesty of Beethoven can sometimes draw an aspirant closer to his source than a dozen books might do, even the one he happens to be reading or listening to. To that end, I am unconditionally and utterly convinced as to the ubiquity and primacy of consciousness. Moreover, all my research leads to the same conclusion, namely that consciousness is transmitted through the human being and filtered by the brain, its instrument of expression. This is, of course, contrary to the current virtually unanimous mainstream neuroscience diktat, which means harsh settlement unilaterally imposed. That thought is produced or generated by the brain, and consciousness is nothing more than a distracting epiphenomenon, which means byproduct or ghost in the machine, explained away by physical processes. Be that as it may, in my view, whereas there is never any question of artificial intelligence overtaking human intelligence, as leading computationalists and entrepreneurs confidently assert, I regard the blurring of the two by virtue of the increasingly rampant glorification of the former, along with the machinization of human intelligence with a promise of a digital afterlife, together with researching gene programming in order to live forever. Some of the most pernicious trends in contemporary mainstream science consciousness research, with notable exceptions, sadly. Such research is still driven by materialistic concepts underpinned by unsupportable presuppositions at the cost of reality and truth. On a brighter note, there is a burgeoning movement amongst increasing numbers of enlightened scientists and philosophers investigating such research evidence that has been ignored or dismissed because it is philosophically incompatible with materialism. In this we see reflected a heartening attempt to build bridges between spirit, mind, and matter. This movement argues for global dialogue about a science of consciousness without restricting consciousness just to a subdiscipline of mainstream neuroscience. It further proposes that consciousness can give us direct access to the deeper structures of reality, and therefore stresses the importance of coupling the normal, theoretical, third-person perspective approach to consciousness studies with the experiential first-person perspective. And second, the indispensable need always to maintain a universal outlook, which demands a plurality of approaches and universality of outlook, which draws on diverse wisdom streams, but always endeavoring to discover their unifying thread and seeking out their source. Sectarianism and its twin dogma are the greatest curses that have blighted not only religion, the obvious example, but albeit more covertly, science, philosophy, and esotericism, no less. I maintain that there is absolutely no one book, teacher, or teaching of any epoch that can be upheld as an absolute gold standard of truth. For example, musicians the world over revere Bach. But no musician would ever enter into an interminable debate over whether Bach was the final authority over, say, Haydn or Mozart or Beethoven, or whether, to wit, Beethoven's fugues were merely borrowed from those of Bach. Still less would musicians engage in prolonged, acrimonious debates over whether the Romantic era was inferior to the Classical era, which happened to come first. Those sectarian attitudes, like poisonous mushrooms, pervade spiritual societies, which are always founded on the basis of truth wherever it leads. It's quite deplorable. To maintain such a stance, promulgated in the guise of upholding the purity of the original teachings, is nothing short of fundamentalism and indicative of weak minds, the equivalent of religious orthodoxy. Attempting to establish an ultimate church of truth based on one authority whose say-so is propped up by its self-appointed popes or archbishops would be an affront to the truth. Furthermore, truth is best served by both intellect and intuition, the way of science in hand with the path of mysticism. Depending on the context, the proportion of each will vary, but in any situation, either one is not a substitute for the other. By a judicious balance combining heart, mind, and will, any propensity towards arrogance stemming from over-reliance on the intellect would be tempered, and any emphasis on the feeling side leading to gullibility, hypersensitivity, and sentimentality would be moderated. Third, it is a huge mistake to believe, as I credulously did for some decades, that members of spiritual organizations are, by definition, a cut above the rest, above the common folk, in terms of their generosity, sincerity, and altruism. Human nature in general is always the same, and I have personally experienced genuinely fraternal behavior as much from those in the wide world of industry, from friends and colleagues who would not have or would want to have any clue about such subjects as theosophy or esoteric science, let alone occultism, as from those few in spiritual organizations. Whereas politics, corruption, and skullduggery are nothing new to commercial organizations, they are no less extant, and in fact are more insidious in spiritual or esoteric societies than the secular world. For that reason, such societies were set up for the express purpose of promulgating truth, and therefore have a sacred duty in this respect which, if departed from for self-seeking motives, constitutes a greater fall and dereliction of duty than would be in the case of ordinary secular life. Clearly, the amount of backbiting and infighting in such societies, among those who profess such things as brotherhood and universal love, is an adulteration and falling away from the nobility of the ideals and spiritual vision of their founders. As Mahatma Gandhi counseled, the best way to change society, let alone the world, is to start with oneself. And that is rarely achieved by merely piously quoting long passages about service to humanity from sacred text or revered books at public lectures. I love it so much. I love it so much. Yes. Oh my God. that last paragraph, it is a huge mistake to believe that members of spiritual organizations are, by definition, a cut above the common folk in terms of their generosity, sincerity, and altruism. How true. Edi quotes Apostle Paul in Volume 3. Ultimately, the greatest battle is against spiritual wickedness in high places. I shall keep you in suspense for the fourth one. That's it for today. We're reading from Volume 1, Unfolding Consciousness, Exploring the Living Universe and Intelligent Powers in Nature and Humans. And Volume 1, real quick here, is a Panoramic Survey, Science Contrasted with the Perennial Philosophy on Consciousness and Man. I love these with you. I like to keep these really short, about 10 minutes or so you can always go back to the previous episodes and revisit, watch it whatever speed you want. You can slow it down. You can read the words on the screen. You can also click down below to get a transcript. And it's imperative that these books are available to all. Currently, they're available only in hardback in a 4-volume set. The links I've included for you. We are working again on audio versions and ebooks and abridged versions. This is an invaluable text. It should be easily accessible for everyone on earth. I'm aiming for 1 episode a week and looking forward to going live with you in a more interactive forum so we can talk together, and having Edi here occasionally. That would be really awesome. Remember, this is not an academic study, but the writings and teachings presented here are ancient, and they are to be applied in our daily lives as instructions for living here on planet Earth. You don't need to join a society. You don't need to buy the book. You don't need to pay for anything or follow anybody other than your own higher self. We are on this journey together. Your comments and questions are welcome. Please like and share if you enjoyed, and I look forward to seeing you very, very soon. Take care. I love you. Thank you.